Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the session today. My name is Yoko Kusumoto. My colleague, James Broadbridge, and I are here to report on the findings of a series of studies into note-taking that we've been conducting over the few years. And we believe that note-taking has become increasingly important as there has been a shift towards English medium instruction classes in universities in expanding circles where English is used as a foreign language like Korea and Japan. In both Korea and Japan, more and more EMI courses have been offered to globalize and internationalize universities, and the governments provide financial support for that. And in Japan, according to the Japanese Ministry of Education report published last year, more than 300 universities were offering EMI courses in 2020. And we focus on note-taking to prepare our students for these EMI courses. But why note-taking? Because note-taking is a vital skill for university students. As Van der Meer points out, the act of note-taking during lectures distinguishes learning at the university from learning at the secondary school. Note-taking increases students' ability to recall, and it also increases comprehension and retention of lectures. So what is note-taking? Piolet, Olive, and Kellogg broke note-taking down into the encoding effect and storage effect. Encoding would be the actual process of being in a lecture and filtering through what is coming from the lecturers. So when you are in a lecture and taking notes, you are working under time pressure and you need to understand what has been said, and also you have to identify what is important and what is not so important. And then you write down the important information. So note-taking engages listeners. The other effect, the storage effect, is that you generate the notes and store them and use them for tasks such as writing essays and taking exams in the future. Note-taking is a complex task, even in our first language. And taking notes in a foreign language is very difficult things to do. The EFL listening activities are very different from academic lectures. The EFL textbook listening sections are often recorded by voice actors, so they are not authentic. Vocabularies are limited to a certain level, and sentence structures are simplified. So the listening doesn't resemble natural speech in many ways. And moreover, teachers can play the audio a few times to help students comprehend what is being said. The academic lectures are much longer with more complex topics. The vocabulary is more academic. The rate of speech is faster. And there are more digressions and repetitions. So academic lectures are vastly different from regular EFL classroom listening tasks. And the previous studies point out that EFL students suffer short-term memory in English and experience more difficulties comprehending what they hear. And they have difficulties breaking down the oral stream. So for EFL learners, an EMI lecture in English is very different environment where it is very difficult to listen, comprehend, and take notes. As more universities are offering EMI courses, there becomes a great need to prepare students for this complex, challenging task that they are becoming more likely to face during their university life. So how can we teach note-taking skills? TESOL developed a pedagogic procedure for teaching note-taking, which involves 4 steps: chunking, marking the transcript, writing verbatim notes, and simplifying notes. And since he's done teaching note-taking successfully in Sweden, we are wondering if the 4-step procedure works with Japanese students as well. And we replicated TESOL's study. Now, let me explain what students do in each step. So the first step is chunking. Students work with a script of a lecture. On a transcript, students put slash mark, like you see in red, to segment content into meaningful chunk. The next step is marking the transcript. Students underline or circle the main idea, supporting ideas, and examples. The purpose of this activity is to help students separate information into various levels of importance, and also to help them recognize which information they should write down and which information they don't need to write down. The step 3 is verbatim. Students listen to short segments and practice writing down what's being said. This activity is to help students catch and record information in real time. Even if students identify what information to write down, they experience that they can't write everything they want to write. So, in the last step, simplifying notes, we encourage students to use symbols and abbreviations. This is to help students practice being efficient and making effective choices when simplifying notes. Now, I will pass on to James to talk about our study.
Okay, thanks very much, Yoko. I'll just share, we'll switch screens over. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong slide. Okay, here we go. So Yoko has given us, yes, here we go. Yoko has given us the background information to the study and kind of explained part of the process that we do in the intervention. So what I'll do is I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the study and talk you through the results. So the first thing to remember is that this is action research. So we have been through a number of iterations of the study now. We're reporting today on the first 3 iterations that we have done, but we've since completing the 3rd iteration and looking at that data which we're presenting today, we've continued with the study, so there is more yet to come. The research question is looking at what effect does explicit instruction have on Japanese university students' ability to take notes. And so the study we have, there is a pre-test. And the pretest involves students listening to a lecture. They take notes during the lecture. They listen to the lecture just once. And then they have a few moments to reflect on those notes, and then they take a comprehension test. Then we go through, over the course of 8 weeks, we go through the 4-step intervention, which Yoko has just described, going through those 4 different steps. And then once those 8 weeks are over, there is a post-test. And in the post-test, the students get a different lecture. Again, they take notes, then they get a few moments to reflect on those notes before taking a comprehension test. And this is closely following the process that TESOL used in the study that Yoko mentioned earlier. Okay, so we'll just go on. When we're looking at, evaluating notes, we use information units, IUs. We use these to evaluate the notes. And so an information unit, this has been used often in studies to evaluate notes, and it's the smallest unit of knowledge that can stand as a separate assertion. So an example for you here, we've got, for example, if I say something like, we really enjoyed our trip to Hawaii, the food was excellent. And we have student 1, if you look at student 1's notes, they have written Hawaii and food. So we would say that this is 0 IUs. Because if you think of, yes, the student has written down Hawaii in reference to that we really enjoyed our trip to Hawaii. But if we return to those notes at a later date and we see the word Hawaii, that doesn't really have any meaning. The single word recorded doesn't allow us to go back and understand what was actually said. And again, with the second notation there, food, again, that doesn't tell us anything about the food. We only know the word food. Does the student want to eat? Does the student think that they want to eat food? Did they eat food? We don't know anything about what's going on. But so we would say that this has 0 IUs. Student 2, on the other hand, this has 2 IUs. We have the smiley face and HI. So looking at that, we can interpret that somebody enjoyed Hawaii. And I think that's enough to get that first sentence from what was spoken. And then we have the GRTFD, great food. And so these are good notes that give the same meaning to that second sentence, the food was excellent. So we can give 2 IUs to student 2. And so this is what we do. We look at the students' notes and we go through and evaluate them, and we assess how many information units are recorded by the students. So in terms of data that we collect for analysis, we get, so as I said, we have the notes that the students take, and we go through those, and we can record the number of IUs that the students have noted during the pre-test and the post-test. We also have comprehension tests, and we look at the scores that the students get on those comprehension tests. And finally, we can compare the notes. We can look at the notes for quality, looking at how they're organized, how they're using symbols, how they're using abbreviations, things like that. And we can see how that changes over the course of the 8-week instruction period. So first of all, I'll just take you through the results. So these are the results from our first 2 iterations. And the first iteration we used as the test methods, we used TED Talks. And we use these because we were very closely we were trying to replicate the study done by Siegel, and we were replicating his methods here. But what we found was, because with our students that we were using in this study, in all 3 iterations that we're presenting to you today, the students were around about the CEFR level of A2, B1. But in fact, and those are Japanese students. In the original Siegel study, the students, it was done in Sweden, and the students were a little bit higher level, and they had better comprehension of the lectures. So what we found was, in iteration 1, using the TED Talks, was that between pre and post, we didn't see any real improvement in the number of IUs, number of information units being recorded, and we didn't see any improvement in their comprehension scores. what we did feel was that when we were going through the process, we did feel that the intervention was having some effect. We felt that, looking at our students' work, we felt that we were improving their ability to take notes. But that wasn't, when it came down to the tests, we weren't seeing any improvement in their output. So we felt that reflecting on iteration 1, we felt that, yes, the intervention was having an effect, but we had no way of proving it. And so we decided that this was due to the test methods. Because we were using the TED Talks, we felt that they were a little bit too difficult for our students. So when it came to iteration 2, what we decided to do was we decided to create our own semi-authentic lectures. And we recorded, and these are kind of simplified lectures, which were closer to those EFL recordings that you would expect to find in a regular EFL class. And as Yoko was comparing the difference between a standard lecture and EFL classes, we kind of fell somewhere in between. We added a little bit of the lecture structure, but we took out things like digressions and hedges to make them a little bit simpler, and we were very careful with the vocabulary we used. And so what we did with the second iteration was, you can see from the results, again, after going through the process again, we found that we were able to see an improvement in the number of information units recorded by the students. And so we felt we were starting to see success, and we were starting to see that the study was successful. However, even though we were improving the information units, we didn't see any change in comprehension score. And so we felt that, this, and the comprehension score, when we think about it, this is the most important thing almost, because the students, if they're in a lecture, if they're going studying abroad, or if they're in a lecture in their home country, they have to be able to comprehend that lecture so they can then go and take a test in a future date, or use what they've heard in the lecture to complete an essay or some kind of project. So we felt that we were only halfway there. So what we did then was we went back. We decided that the thing to do was then to go back to those 4 steps and add a 5th step. And the step that we decided to add was this free writing at the end. And so we started including, and you can see the instruction we were giving to our students. It's very, very simple instruction. But once they had listened to the lecture and taken their notes, we asked them to look back at their notes. And then we gave them time to just write freely on the topic of the lecture. And so the reason why we were doing this is we felt that steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, these were very closely connected with the encoding function, whereas there was nothing that was really aiding the storage function. And we wanted to do something that would more activate this storage, that would do something that would really help the students to store the information and comprehend the information so that they could then use it at a later date. And we felt that free writing was one way that that could happen. So we can just show you some notes that between pre and post. We've got a couple of students to look at. So the first student here, we can see, if we're looking on the left of the screen, with these are from the pre-test. The student recorded 10 information units and scored 5 points on the comprehension test. On the post-test, we had 13 IUs, so an improvement. And I'm not sure if you can see that because I'll just move my face over there. You can see that they got 7 points on the comprehension test. So we're getting an improvement here. And you can also see below, with the free writing, they were able to write quite a lot more with the free writing after a little bit of practice. Looking at those post-test notes, you can also see there's a lot more organization happening. You can see that they have been able to recognize that there are 3 sections to the lecture. They have divided the paper into 3 sections: the left column, the center column, and the right column. I think we're getting a lot more use of abbreviations. We're getting, well, some use of abbreviations and symbols as well. So we can see some improvements in their note-taking skills and in how much is recorded and their comprehension. The next set of student notes, again, you can see there's an even bigger improvement here. So on the left, In black, we have 6 information units recorded with 5 points scored on the comprehension test. And we can see underneath, we've got quite a short summary written in Japanese. On the right, we can see in red that the student has clearly increased the amount that they're noting down. They have recorded a lot more information units, double the number of information units, but unfortunately, they're not seeing much increase in their comprehension. But we are seeing a lot more. You could argue maybe that the comprehension has improved because they've been able to write more in the summary below. And so again, of course, with the comprehension test, this is another thing that maybe we need to look at. Are the comprehension tests really recording the comprehension? This is maybe something for a future iteration. Okay, so then we can move on and look at the results of the group in total. And you can see for iteration 3, so again, this is the similar level of students, and these were using the semi-authentic lectures and with the free writing as well. We could see that we were getting an increase in the number of information units between pre and post. We're also seeing not as big a jump as in iteration 2, but we are still getting a statistically significant improvement. But we're also getting an increase in average comprehension score. And again, that is statistically significant. So it seems to us that we are getting that the study with this third iteration, it has been successful in improving both their note-taking ability and the number of IUs they've been able to record. And we're also seeing an increase in comprehension score. So we feel that this third iteration has been relatively successful. Okay, so what the conclusions that we can take from this is that, well, I think we're starting to see, we feel that the study is adding to the evidence that note-taking is clearly a skill that can be taught. In all of the iterations, we're seeing improvements in our students' ability to take notes. And so this is something, it's definitely a skill that not only can be taught, but we think that it should be taught. And we think when we look in the literature, if you look in textbooks, if you look in a lot of literature that is dealing with note-taking, there aren't many guidelines of how it should be taught. There's very often you will see things like, say, tell the students to listen for the key points and to note them down. And we feel that that's not giving enough information to the students. It's not giving them enough scaffolding, or breaking down what they have to do. Whereas we feel that with Siegel's 4-step approach, plus adding in this 5th step, that this is really helping the teachers to teach the skill better, and also it's really helping the students to effectively improve their notation skills. There's a couple of things that we also need to think about. We have to worry that we're worried that about confusing listening comprehension with note-taking ability. So we often see that students, what we're seeing from our study is that students are able to take notes, but they're not able to comprehend what's happening. So you may be, if you're giving a lecture, you may be really happy because you're walking around the room, or you can looking down and you're seeing that your students, they're taking a huge amount of notes. But that doesn't mean that the students are comprehending. It doesn't mean that they understand exactly what they're saying. So we would like to recommend, strongly that not only to teach these note-taking skills, but we think that if you're giving lectures, you need to spend a little bit of time and provide that time where the storage effect can be utilized, can be brought into effect, so that the students have. It's not enough just to give you a lecture and expect the students to comprehend, especially when they're doing it in a foreign language. There needs to be this break where maybe they're discussing, maybe they're writing in class, and then this will help them move on and progress and succeed in their studies. Okay, as I said, so these are the results. So we've gone through 3 iterations here. The study continues, and you never know, we may be back in future years with a 4th or 5th iteration of the study. But thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen to us today. There are references here for some of those noted. And if you have any questions, please get in contact with us, and we'll be very happy to answer your questions and talk further about the topic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.